you, especially for coming out tonight, because this is the first time we're doing this. We wanted to try something a little new, a little different. So we reached out to our very dear friend Amanda to come, and I was like, hey, I know that you have a book. I've seen some of the works. I've been fortunate enough, thanks to you, to share in some of them. So please come and let's try to do this. So tonight's gonna be a little bit different than the other nights that you guys have been here, or things that you've seen. Amanda's gonna read portions of How to Say I Love You, which there are signed copies of in the back. They're $10, cash or Venmo. I read it a lot over the last little bit because with her permission, I've written some original music to coincide with her storytelling. So it's a wonderful story and something that I learned a lot about myself while I was on that journey too. So thank you for coming tonight to share in this next part of the journey. Would you please welcome to the stage, live from the Garden Room, Amanda Shire.
So, a little bit about the book. How to Say I Love You has been 9 years in the making. It began as a play that I was writing while I was doing my master's in Dublin, Ireland. And I was lucky enough to study with Irish playwright Marina Carr, and she gave us an assignment of keeping a dream journal, and whatever we could remember, that's what we would use for our scene writing. And one night I had a dream that was just, it was so real and vivid that it just stayed with me all day, and I kind of felt like this was gonna be more than just a scene for class. It was gonna have a life of its own. So I kind of ran with it, and I workshopped it as a play in Dublin while I was writing it, and then it had its debut in Orlando at the Venue 5 years later. And a year after that, I debuted the continuation of the story, The Unavailable Man Magnet, at the Orlando Fringe. So I always knew there was so much more to Nessa's story than I could really put on the stage feasibly without it being very long or boring to watch. So I began turning to How to Say I Love You, the play, into a novel. So what is How to Say I Love You about? It's a multi-viewpoint, feminist, romantic comedy, and as the book jacket reads, it's been 7 years since Nessa last saw the unattainable love of her life. George was the older, mysterious boy next door who left home before Nessa was even out of her teenage years. Yet now he appears nightly in Nessa's dreams, proclaiming his love for her in romantic foreign cities. But George couldn't actually be in love with Nessa, could he? On the verge of a quarter-life crisis, Nessa is ready to find out that answer. So she sets out to find George, using her dreams as the roadmap, enlisting her cousin and best friend Sammy to go along with her. The two women embark on a European adventure that will test their hearts, friendship, and their own beliefs in fate. So to begin at the beginning, from the prologue, The Red String of Fate. During my freshman year of college, I took an Asian cultures class as part of my general education courses. One night, I was up well past 1 in the morning, working on assignments for a few different classes. I was sitting against the wall of windows that looked out over the quad so that I could watch the wind blow through the trees when I needed a break. After finishing 40 pages on Carl Jung and his archetypes, I moved on to the last reading of the night. It was so innocuous. Read pages 52 through 75 of a book on Chinese mythology. As the clock drew closer to 2 in the morning and the wind howled through the trees, I read a passage in that book that would shake me to my core. I reread it 3 times that night and twice the next day just to make sure I understood what it was telling me. The Red String of Fate is a myth that occurs in many Asian cultures, but it originated in Chinese culture. It is believed that everyone on Earth is connected to another person. They are fated to be in their lives in spite of everything that might keep them apart. This is because the love deity, the matchmaker god, has tied these two people together with the red string of fate. It is tied to each of their ankles, and it lasts through time and space to bring these two people together when the time is right for them to find each other. Some stories include the lovers meeting as children and then again as adults. Other stories had them never meeting, but perhaps passing each other on the street every day for years without even noticing one another until one day, bang, they meet and it's all over from there. My stomach flipped with each sentence I read because it spoke so deeply to me, George and I are connected by the red string of fate. We are supposed to be in each other's lives, and we will be together eventually because the red string tied around my ankle leads directly to his. Nevertheless, it's been 7 years since that late and windy night in the library. It has also been 7 years since the last time I've seen George's face or heard his unmistakable laugh. I've never given up on the belief that the red string of fate would ultimately bring us together, but every year grows even harder than the last as I feel a piece of myself missing. It's like an aching phantom limb. 7 years I thought about him and dreamed about him, but life kept us apart. 7 years, that is, until last week.
I got a hold of you, I won't let go of you. I got a hold of you, I won't let go of you. Straight line, shortest distance, tangled knots won't slow my persistence. My destiny, a non-fiction, true love's my only addiction. Always linger, tied like string around my finger. Hold on tight, don't let go till we're face to face and we're soul to soul. Like clove-scented smoke, you're taking my breath away. And if it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna say it to you someday. Because the red string binds me, ties me tightly to you. I got a hold of you, I won't let go of you. I got a hold of you, I won't let go. Thank you.
Chapter 3, Talk Fairy Tale to Me. Well, what is it then? Why the sudden need to flee the capital? Sammy asks, as she picks up a pair of jeans and begins to roll them into the tiniest mound she can possibly create. I've been having those dreams again. I start folding clothes along with her. The George dreams? Sammy says with a mixture of concern and intrigue in her voice. Oh no, she knows exactly what I'm referring to. Oh yes, I confirm. Oh no, I thought they had stopped. She stops folding. Sammy has seen the aftermath of too many George dreams. All throughout her college years, she woke up when I would in the middle of the night, crying, screaming, and laughing. She listened over breakfast as I agonized over each excruciating detail. Most importantly, she took me out and made me meet real flesh and blood men when I would simply refuse to believe anyone out there would mean anything more to me than a quick thrill in the bar parking lot. She's been with me through it all. It only makes sense that she'd be with me now. I shake my head. They did stop for a while. For a long time, actually, I was fine. I barely even thought about him. It has just been the past few weeks they have started again. Every freaking night, there he is. My eyes are barely closed for a minute and he appears. And then this morning, I woke up and I just snapped. It all became completely clear to me. I have to find him. He did always have a very dream-worthy quality, like Uncle Jesse meets Freddie Mercury. But after all these... Wait. Sammy stops. She's just staring at me. She isn't moving. She isn't sipping her coffee or folding her clothes. Her eyes are fixed on mine and there is absolute silence. I don't think there has ever been this much silence between us in our entire lives. And then, what do you mean, find him? Sammy finally asked suspiciously. These dreams have been slightly different. In them, I'm seeing him in different countries, different cities. They are incredibly specific. We're together and happy. I think that maybe they're trying to tell me something. Maybe they're telling me to go out and find him. And hey, you and I, we always talked about backpacking across Europe. I'm really hoping that last little spin sells her. Backpack across Europe to look for George. Now she seems even more suspicious. My plan may have backfired. Yes and no. It will be our quarter-life crisis trip, our adventure. We follow the dreams, and if we happen to find George along the way, then it was meant to be. Like fate. I give Sammy an unwavering, confident look, and a slow smile crawls across her face. I love it when you talk fairy tale to me.
I was trying just to get away and save the heartbreak for another day. 'Cause you were someone else's dream come true. And like a fool, you asked me to marry you. Your life was safe and your arms were strong, but I was caught between a dream and a song. When he appeared, to my surprise, it's only then I've come to realize the wrong man was right before my eyes. So cut me loose and set me free. It ain't you, babe, it's me. Cut me loose so I can find only love that's been on my mind. The only thing that I've ever been sure of is you and I were destined for great love. The simple life, it can pull you in. Your hopes and dreams all start to wear thin. I've had enough of this wasting time. Take control over this heart of mine. 'Cause you and I, we were born to be tied together for all eternity. It's only now I feel that I'm finally free. You'll understand that you are my destiny. So cut you loose and set me free. It ain't you, babe, it's me. Cut me loose so I can find only love that's been on my mind. I got my book of the world's translations, a little map of the underground stations, a pad and a pen. They're my best friend. You know we're in this together till the journey ends. Whatever it takes, whatever I do, I've got to find you. So cut me loose, set me free. It ain't you, babe, it's me. Cut me loose so I can find only love that's been on my mind. Cut me loose, set me free. It ain't you, babe, it's me. Cut me loose so I can find only love that's been on my mind.
Thank you.
Chapter 5, Left with a Scar. So where was he this time? I hear Sammy's voice cut through the blackness. I can't see her, but I can feel her laying next to me in bed. I'm sitting up straight as a board, drenched in sweat. My breath is quickly returning to me as I recognize my surroundings. I'm safe, sharing this tiny bed with Sammy. All of the ugliness was just a dream. I feel Sammy's hand softly land on top of my knee. Even under the best circumstances, she knows it takes me a few minutes to come out of my dreams, and this has been unlike any other I've had before. Paris? We were in Paris. I take Sammy's hand, unable to lay back down and relax. Should I boot up Ryanair? Sammy asks without flinching. In fact, looking down at her, she hasn't even opened up her eyes. I don't think she fully understands what this was, how different this felt. We were fighting. He was yelling at me. He was so angry. I was crying and screaming after him. What do you think that means? We never fight in my dreams, and we've never fought in real life. He was saying he was going to leave me, Sammy. What do you think that means? I don't know. Damn, it's burning up in here. Did you turn the fan off? Sammy drops my hand and is up and out of bed, beating on the small oscillating fan in the corner. No, it must have broken while we were asleep, I squeak. Sammy seems unusually irritated. She gives the fan's buttons a few more pushes before sighing and moving on to the window. Motionless, I watch her from the bed. She lifts open the tiny window and, sticking her head out into the city, gives the saddest groan. Ugh, no relief. Did we really have to come to Rome in July? She pulls herself back into the room to face me. He was here, I start. In my dream, Sammy matches the end of my sentence word for word. Pulling her head back in and turning back into the room, she rests against the open window. The moon is shining through strands of her blonde hair, and she looks as if she should be starring in a foreign language film about an artist's muse. I reach down the side of the bed, grasping for my water bottle, but find the half bottle of wine Sammy and I were working on before bed instead. I pull the bottle up to my mouth. The insanely cheap €1 wine is dark and smells pungent. I take a swig from the bottle and my cheeks flush immediately. Sammy has returned from her Fellini-esque reverie in time to catch me wiping the wine dripping from the side of my mouth. Well, I extend out my arm and hand her the wine, and without skipping a beat, she accepts it. Well, this won't cool us off. Sammy swishes the wine around in the bottle for a few seconds before taking a swig. No, the dream, I press her. I don't know, maybe... She takes an excruciatingly long sip from the now nearly empty bottle. Maybe what? I keep pushing forward. Sammy is being unusually evasive, and I'm not exactly in the mood to go mining for answers right now. Maybe it means we need to stop chasing George across the damn globe. Maybe we need to go somewhere that we really want to see and actually stay longer than 24 hours. Sammy stops abruptly and finishes the bottle. That wasn't evasive at all. What's the problem here? Haven't you enjoyed Rome or Amsterdam? I thought you loved London. We wanted to backpack, and that's what we're doing. We have seen so many cities already. Are you homesick? I'm trying my best to understand where she's coming from. I try to read Sammy's eyes from across the room. She's still sitting in the window, but now I'm fully awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed facing her. I guess I'm just getting a little tired of the agenda, she says somewhat sheepishly. It has only been a little over a week. I'm sorry you're feeling that way, but I've been in love with George since I was 6 years old. If I have a chance to actually find him now, I have to keep trying. I'm so close, I can feel it. I have to keep following these dreams. I thought you supported me. I plead with her. I do support you, of course I do. But I want to go to Berlin, not Paris. Parisians are so French. Sammy walks away from the window and is now pacing in front of the bed. I tilt my body so I can stay square with her. We can go to Germany after Paris, I offer. Until the next dream takes place in Croatia or Bulgaria. Sammy's pace is quickening. What are you saying, Sammy? I stand to meet her. I'm saying you're being a little selfish. This was supposed to be our trip, our quarter-life crisis trip. I thought you said fate would bring George to us, right? Then let's let fate do its thing, she says with a matter-of-fact tone in her voice. We said we would follow the dreams. That was the plan. My frustration has reached my voice and it stops Sammy in her tracks. Yes, we did. But I didn't think that was all we would do. We're each now standing on our respective sides of the bed, but it feels like we're on different sides of the world.
On the ground in London town, I can't believe I'm finally on my way. Today's the day. Big Ben and back again. It's just like the stories I've been told. Next stop, Abbey Road. But every stranger's face I see curiosity, but when turning around, I still haven't found the face that I've seen in all of my dreams. Folding hands, I stick to the plan, feeling so restless and alone, waking up in Rome. As all of the sights fade into the night, I'm losing faith that I'm never gonna see him on a tour of the Colosseum. Posing for the pictures, I feel myself about to cry. I've gotta move on, I've gotta stay strong, get back on the plane, hit the sky. Paris, France could be my last chance, 'cause the dream I had the other night, George and I got in a fight. His face had changed, his voice rearranged. I only hope that it's not a sign I'm running out of time. Now all that I'm thinking of is pulling at the string of love, when out of nowhere a voice breaks the air and I drop like a stone from 30,000 miles above. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We regret to inform you that due to a heavy fog around Paris airport, we will be rerouting your plane to Munich, Germany. We apologize for any inconvenience, and we will do everything we can to get you back on your way to Paris, France. In the meantime, we ask that you please keep your seats and tray tables in their full upright and locked position as we begin our descent into Munich. Crying in the baggage claim, a strange voice that sounds the same. My head it is spinning, I'm holding my breath, my heart it is pounding out of my chest. Thank you.
Chapter 11, Guilty by Association. George watches me for a moment. So tell me about yourself. What does that mean? He obviously already knows me. What about me? I question him. Well, to start with, where are you living? What are you doing? Do you still run around the old neighborhood in a zebra print onesie? His eyes glimmer in his delight at teasing me. That was one time, I squeal. He continues on. You came to my door. Stop, I plead. In your pajamas, he pushes, I sigh. In a ravishing shade of fuchsia glitter eyeshadow. He's completely straight-faced. Mortifying. I dramatically hide my face in the couch cushion, asking for a cup of sugar. He finishes his theatrical retelling. I remove my face from the cushion to say, it was my 14th birthday and we were playing Truth or Dare. It was pretty funny, that was for sure. He takes a sip of his wine. Well, thank you for not laughing in my face back then. I would have been crushed. I match his sip. I would not have dared. There was always something about you. He searches for the word he's looking for. A bravado. The wine catches in my throat. I've never been described that way in my life. You make me sound like Clint Eastwood. I'm very sweet, very cute Clint Eastwood, he corrects me. There it is. The word no woman hoping to be seen in a romantic light wants to be called. Cute. I repeat after him. Yes, he looks confused. Right. Cute is the way he sees me. Like a bunny rabbit or a cartoon mouse. What is wrong? Are you saying you don't want to be cute, Clint? It's a compliment, I assure you. He looks rather disappointed. I better walk this back before I start saying what I'm really thinking. No, of course I do. Sorry, I'm just a little tired and getting a little tipsy, I explain apologetically. George's eyes and lips narrow. I sense he doesn't really buy my line. He turns his body in more to face mine. Have you been writing? He asks. Off and on, I deflect. He doesn't allow for my vague response. Why? That's what I do. I'm a writer, or trying to be. Trying is one way of putting it. I meant why off and on? Why not on and on? And on and on and on and on. He rolls his head in dizzying circles. I reach out and grab his forearm to stop his momentum. It doesn't pay the bills, let's put it that way. It should. It could. I know you. His enthusiasm surprises me. I don't know about that. I pull back my hand, looking down at my half-empty glass of wine. Reaching out and nudging my arm, George encourages, "You should not be so stingy with that brain of yours. The world could use a little peace." The world could use a little peace. I shoot him a wink and a peace sign with my 2 fingers. I'm being serious here. He has locked me in his stare. Even though they have lines at their corners, his eyes haven't aged a day. I swirl my wine in his glass. Me too. "Nessa, what is really going on? How did I find you crying in a German airport? What are you doing wandering aimlessly through Europe? Why are you not holed up in a little flat, surrounded by books and a shaggy dog and a bottle of whiskey like a proper writer?" "Now you're a comedian," I ask, though there is not a shred of a joke behind his words now. "I'm just trying to figure out why the girl who wanted to set the world on fire seems to be letting her embers fade." He is relentless, because nobody wants me. Nobody wants my manuscripts. Nobody wants a piece of my brain. I'm single, I sling drinks and tacky entrees, and that's all there is to me. Nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody wants me, okay? I'm out of breath. I want you. George quickly blurts out. We are both stunned into silence by our words. We sit in it for a moment, not really knowing how to continue. Quietly, I start. Sometimes I feel like I'm writing the same story over and over again, hoping that the ending will be different. You're the writer, can you not just change it? Write the ending that you want? George's voice is much gentler now. I tried, but maybe it's just not for me. I mean, 100 rejection letters should tell me that, right? I shake my head. Hey. He places his hand on my knee, squeezing it gently. I believe in you. Do you really? I wonder out loud. Of course I do. I always have. His hand is still on my knee. That means a lot to me. I suddenly feel like crying, but I hold it in. I should not be keeping you up so late. I am sorry. George moves his hand back to his lap, sitting up straight as though he might stand. Don't be silly. I've enjoyed it, I softly say. Me too. He leans forward, pushing up to his feet. Do you remember the last time we stayed up late talking like this? I ask, hoping he'll stay a little longer. He turns his head to look at me. It's been a very long time. 7 years ago. You were visiting your parents the summer after you moved to Seattle? My eyes stay locked in on him, looking for some recognition of the memory.
I've been around. I've seen the world, felt it turn. Here we are now. Look in your eyes, I feel it burn. Suddenly I'm home. Suddenly I'm free. I've never met a girl quite like her. This can't be real. An undeniable truth. The only way to describe how I feel. 'Cause when I'm with her, I feel I can't fly. I'm not the one who set out to find someone like you. Something seems right and something feels true. It grabs a hold and won't let go, because the red string finds me, ties me tightly to you. All of my life I have been waiting for you. Here we are now. You just appear, you whisper, I love you. Everything stops, nothing more said, because the red string finds you, ties you tightly to me.
Chapter 13. Knock knock, who's there? The night is sticky hot, but the swirling of the ceiling fan is keeping us cool as we sing and sway to the music. There is an electricity in the air here. I could feel it the moment I got off the plane. Even before Nessa ran through the crowd to hug me so hard we both ended up on the floor. Even before Aaron texted me to say he was coming to Barcelona to meet us. I felt something here. I don't usually subscribe to such ideas, but if there were ever a place to have magic woven into its fabric, this would be it. All right, I'm getting us another bottle, a pack of cigs, and what else? Aaron calls cheekily from just outside the poorly painted, poorly constructed hostel room door. Cherries! Nessa and I call back in unison as we both jockey for position in the very tiny mirror over the sink. Where am I supposed to find cherries at this hour? He retorts, his delicious accent on full display. This is Barcelona! Nessa turns with a swing of her hip and the biggest smile I have seen her wear in years. Aaron squints his eyes and with a tilt of his head asks, "You do know Barcelona and Candyland are not one and the same, right?" I catch his eye through the mirror and he flashes me a toothy grin. He looks incredible, standing ever so nonchalantly leaning against the door frame. I cross the room to him, very aware of him watching me in my little black dress and heels. It is a far cry from how I looked when we first met, and even though I feel much more confident and in control now, he looks at me with the same sweetness as he did last night. There's a guy selling them down on the corner to the left. We met him earlier. I pat him on the chest, turning him around and out the door. I missed all the action, it seems, he laments as I playfully give him a push. But as he briskly walks down the hallway to the stairs, I call out, "The night is still young." He turns back with a robotic flare. "I'll be back." I close the door behind me to see Nessa fully facing me with a cocky smile on her face. "You are such the smitten kitten," her expressive eyes glowing in gold shimmer eyeshadow. "Shush you." I feel my cheeks flush as I rejoin her in the mirror. "Yes!" Nessa runs to her laptop and turns the volume all the way up as our favorite Gloria Estefan song hits the playlist. "Si, senor, si, senor." We sing along with Gloria. I watch as Nessa dances in front of the mirror, swinging her silver mini dress through the air. "You look absolutely fucking alive right now." She gives me a squeeze. I feel alive. I feel happy. Finally. I went through all the other feelings already. I was confused, angry, sad, and I mean really sad. And now, I feel good, baby. She takes a drink of wine from her glass, and now I want to party with the fine people of Spain. She ends with a twirl and shouts into the air. firm pounding on the door catches us both off guard and sends us into a fit of laughter. "What did you forget?" I holler out from across the room as I make my way to let Aaron back in. I swing the door open only to see it's not Aaron at all. The man is facing away, looking down the hall. My heart catches in my throat. I slam the door shut and throw the puny chain. "No habla español," I shout through the door. "What's going on? Who is it?" Nessa asks in a drunken whisper. "I don't know. Not Aaron, though. It's a big guy with dark hair. Maybe he's like hostile security or something, and he's come to kick us out." I look over to the bed where she's sitting. "Were we being too loud?" Nessa shrinks. I peek through the peephole, but it's too dirty to actually see anything. "You have the wrong room," I yell through the crack in the door. "Sammy, open the door." A deep voice comes from the other side of the door. Holy shit. Nessa and I look at each other shocked. I try again to look through the very dirty peephole, but to no avail. "How do you know my name?" "Because I know you, Sammy, and even if I did not, you just told me what your name was by your answer." The voice ends with an odd laugh. It's almost familiar. Oh my God. Nessa stands up from the bed, her face white as a ghost. "Ciao, creep," I yell through the door. "Sammy, stop." That laugh. Nessa's eyes are glazed over. Oh shit. Nessa and I both swallow hard, realizing exactly who was on the other side of the door. "Sammy, please open the door. It's George. I'm here to see Nessa." His voice still firm, but imploring. Nessa runs past me and opens the door so quickly I fear that it may come straight off the latches. "George." All of the air is sucked out of the room. She looks as though she didn't truly believe it was him until she saw his face. "What are you doing here?" I hear the trembling in her voice. Watch her hands grasp the door frame, and I instinctively go to her. I stand directly behind her, place my hand on her shoulder, and fix George with my most withering stare. Harassing young women in Catalan hostels, obviously. He plays off the question with a joke. "George, what are you doing here?" Nessa asks again, now much more confidently. I feel it in the posture beneath my hand. George turns his body back, looking down the hall, and then turns back to us. "It seems I'm interrupting girls' night. I will just leave." He only takes one step backward when Nessa stops him with, "Wait." She breaks from my grasp and steps out into the hall. "You came all the way to Spain to knock on my door and run away?" I step out with Nessa because I would very much like to know the answer to that as well. "God, you are gorgeous." George shatters the silence into a million pieces. Nessa taps my leg with her hand, discreetly asking me to give them some privacy. I step slowly back into the room, close the door just enough without actually shutting it, and listen. "You left without even saying goodbye," George says sadly, his voice almost boyish in its innocence. "I didn't want to bother you," Nessa responds stoically, but she barely finishes her sentence before George chimes in, "Bullshit," his voice noticeably less innocent than before. "Fine, I didn't want to see you." She raises her voice, and I can feel the truth canoe tipping over the edge of the waterfall. I grab my purse and open the door. They both look at me sharply. "You know what, sweetie? We will be downstairs at the bar next door. The one with all the candles, you know the one?" I kiss her on the cheek and she grabs my hand firmly. "Yes, thank you." At the top of the staircase, I stop for a moment to listen if they've continued their conversation, but I don't hear anything. Then I smile, hearing Aaron singing to himself from below. He's dancing up the stairs with arms full of cherries and wine. "Hello," I smile down to him. "That cherry man is just delightful. I bought 2 bags. Aaron dances up to me. I grab him by the shoulders and turn him back around on the stairs. "Where are we going?" he asks, utterly confused. "Out." I sling my arm through his, grabbing the pack of cigarettes from him. "What about Nessa?" he asks while we walk carefully back down the steps. "George showed up. I say with a look to him. Aaron stops in his tracks. The George. I want to get a look at him. He turns to go back up the steps. I grab a hold of his arms. How about we share those cherries on the bench out front? Watch the people pass by, and if you're lucky, maybe I'll show you a trick I can do with the stems.
It's gonna take me a sec, guys. Be cool.
If I said the words out loud, could you hear it through the crowded streets and walk right back to me? Would you believe me when I say that I've always felt this way, and yet somehow I don't know how? If it were the ink inside my pen, would the words become the truth again? Only at the end would you read between the lines, deep inside this heart of mine. After all this time, how to say I love you after all that I've been through, falling for the thought of you and what's to come. Another chapter's begun after you. I must mend my broken heart, of which you'll always have a part of me to remember quietly. Puts a smile across your face, then it leaves without a trace, because the past wasn't meant to last. And since I woke up from this dream, there's so much more life it seems that's in front of me. I won't say I didn't cry, I'll never live that lie because of you. I know what's true. How to say I love you after all that I've been through, falling for the thought of you and what's to come. Another chapter's begun, and when it's all said and done, I'll have to say it to someone. How to say I love you with my feet still on the ground, listening for the echoed sound of the words returned. And the lesson is learned to say I love you, to say I love you, to say I love you. Thank you guys so much. How about a hand for Amanda?
Damn, I mean, I have chills just listening to the music.
That concludes the more like performance-oriented portion of this evening. What we're going to do now is we're going to ask Amanda some questions about processes, the characters, and stuff like that. And I'm going to start. and I've asked this question before, but I don't remember answers. It was different back then. I need the recipe for Nessa. I need to know, and I later, if not me, someone else will ask you about you. But we've just heard so much about this person's life and this journey. What's the equation? What's the recipe? How much of her is you? How much of her is the every woman? Where does she come from?
Such an easy question to answer. I don't know. It's more of a cooking recipe than a baking recipe. Baking is very, very measured. You have to add exact ingredients. With cooking, you just throw things in and hope it tastes good. And that's kind of more what I subscribe to, even when I'm baking, which is unfortunate. So Nessa began with me because, as I said in the beginning, she started with a dream I had. I have my own George in my past and in my life, and I kind of wondered what would happen if I had that moment of being able to say to him, I love you, because the moment never happened. And so that's where I was kind of like, okay, so it's about what ifs. And her herself, she's really a compilation. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of really strong women in my life, from family members to best friends, and they've all, sometimes willingly and sometimes after the fact, lent me stories and thoughts and feelings and snapshots of their life that have really completed Nessa.
Excellent. Very cool. Does anybody have a question for Amanda, either about the process of being an author and playwright, or about the story that we heard this evening? Yes, James Honey.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Am I correct in understanding that it's multiple points of view in the book? What was the inspiration for writing it from multiple points of view?
Yeah, so it is a multiple point of view book. So during the course of the story, you get perspectives of Nessa as the primary, but then you also get chapters from George's perspective and chapters from Sammy's perspective. I went into writing it completely from Nessa's perspective, but found, because it had come from being a play where you can see all the different scenes and how everybody's interacting and what everyone's feeling and doing, I really felt only having Nessa's point of view would shortchange George and Sammy's arc throughout the story, and so I really wanted to include that. And I know it's kind of unconventional in modern novel writing, but it's what spoke to me, and I tried to make it as clear as possible. And I have my cousin, who's kind of the inspiration for Sammy, is also my first editor. She gets all my first drafts, and I was like, does this make any sense? And she's like, yeah, I got it, right? First sentence, I understood who was talking. So I was like, cool.
So you go into talking about how this was a play beforehand. So when you were younger, thinking about becoming a writer, was it strictly plays? Was there a time where you were like, I'm gonna write that novel, or was it primarily just you wrote the play, it was on its feet enough times, you let enough people read it, and they said, hey, you know what? This would once upon a time this, and then let's go on. So where was the transition from play into novel? Was that something in the beginning stages that it ever seemed would happen?
Yeah, in the beginning stages, I never thought of it as a novel, because, for the past 10 years or so, God, even longer, since basically my senior year of college, which would have been, so about 10 years ago, I had to think about that, I knew I kind of wanted to be a playwright. I made a transition from acting to wanting to be a writer, and so that's what I was focused on. It was going to be a play. I wanted to be a full-length play, really realized. But then as I'm writing the play, I wrote a montage scene set to Queen's Breakthrough. And so, a friend of mine who I had do a beta reading of the play, he was like, you basically wrote a movie scene into a play. And I was like, so, my wheels started turning then. I'm like, there's so much I want to do that I either can't do on the stage because I don't have $1 million to produce on a big proscenium stage with, airports and all the necessary scene changes, and I wanted to be able to really get into Nessa's head and really go there. So that's when I kind of started thinking it's going to be a novel. It was really once I was knee deep into the production of the first thing that back at the venue in 2015. That's when I was really like, there is so much more than I can do on the stage that I want to communicate. So that's when it really started turning for me.
Very cool, because I was there.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Because I've got, yes, James Honey again.
Yes, hi. Just called. If I may, in the sitting down to write the book, were you ever influenced by what had led you down the road to get there? In other words, were you just swinging for the fences because you have an unlimited budget? This is where the story wants to go. It doesn't matter anymore, as opposed to feeling hampered like at some point, I want to see this on a stage somewhere or in a film or something like that. So I'm writing from that doability point of view as opposed to just whatever my heart is singing.
When it came to the novel, I really just kind of swung for the fences. That's why they travel to all the places
Right.
that there's scenes in London and Rome, and so I wanted to just make it as big as possible, really let the story breathe. Now, if I could make it into a movie, that'd be pretty fantastic. But I never kind of thought about constrictions once I started novel writing.
Very cool.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned the performance at the venue.
Mhm.
I was in attendance for that. That was, I got to see one Nessa.
Yes.
And then there was the Fringe show, the Unavailable Man Magnet, where I got to see Lauren, who in my opinion is the perfect embodiment of Nessa.
Yes, very much.
For me. If you guys didn't see it, and if you've ever seen Sleuth's show, she actually works here. She's awesome.
Brilliant.
But she was Nessa in the Unavailable Man Magnet. And tonight was the first time that you actually kind of breathed life into her in more of a performance, like where someone else's eyes married her words to somebody else.
Yeah.
How did that process go? Were you okay with that? Is it something that you feel more comfortable in now, having kind of given birth to her on paper?
I was terrified. Even though I've done quite a bit of acting myself, actually being myself, like public speaking, is scary as anything to me. So like actually being here as Amanda and talking in front of everybody, and yeah, actually speaking Nessa's words, because she is so close to me, and the flower of her cake is me.
I love that.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it felt a little, almost too vulnerable. I actually considered asking Lauren to be here to read it for me, because I was like, I don't know if I can do this, but I feel alive, as Nessa says.
We were speaking before tonight's performance about how thankful I am for you to actually let me wear kind of her skin for a little bit, and how much I had learned from that process. I've never tried to write to meet anyone else's material. This was a very big project for me as a songwriter, and I learned so much. I said to you that Nessa she's a woman, she is our hero, she has all these journeys, and I was so desperate to write a song from a feminine perspective. And when I sat down and I did it, when I actually started piecing the chords together, writing the lyrics, I realized that Nessa is just a person. And she just has the regular emotions that everybody else has. And it was a really, from one creative person to the next, it was a really a wonderful moment for me to kind of become awakened in. So thank you for creating a character that's it makes perfect sense, I think, just about to everybody. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Were there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, this is your baby. I don't know if it's your only baby. Oh, I know you have an actual baby.
Yeah.
I mean, writing baby. You got a piece of art baby.
Yeah, this was my
Um,
first baby.
yeah,
He
so-
came later.
So giving your art to someone else and just saying, do whatever, in this case was Dan, and just like, whatever you feel like works for this, do it. Does it feel weird to kind of give someone else full creativity over your work?
Yes and no. When I first started writing and having like plays produced, it felt kind of weird, and especially when I first had this, because it felt so close to me, and I had been working on it for 5 years, and so when I had that first full production at the venue, I would sit in the back and like literally hold the playbill over my face, because I was just like, I don't know what this is gonna do throughout the course of the show. So it is very much just being like, here's my heart, I'm gonna
Yeah.
everybody have at it.
Yeah.
And it was a learning experience. So I think now, a couple years later, I feel a lot more comfortable with it. But I say that with a caveat, because you really, I think, have to trust the people you collaborate with, and trust the people that you give your art to work with. And when Dan said he was inspired in writing, I knew there was no safer hands to put my work in than his to write music for, because I knew he got it. And yeah, it felt, there was no trepidation at all when he said he wanted to write some songs. I was like, yes, I want to hear them all.
Thank you. Because this, like I said before, this was a monumental project for me. I don't know. I know we discussed how the story was going to go, but I don't know if you cosmically understand how big, because so much I've always wanted to write conceptual because of my love for The Who. And this was the first time I actually tried to write music, not only set to someone else's material, but that told an actual story. But I also, in that, was like, I'm going to pay homage to Pete Townsend. So a lot of the inspiration for, at least the style of music was coming out, was very both The Who and Pete Townsend.
Yeah.
Now, for you as a writer of a novel or a play, where does that inspiration come from? Is there somewhat of a blueprint or a chord pattern for me that you would say, you know what, if I kind of stay in this person's footsteps, I'll have a much better idea of where I'm going. Is there someone like that for you in the writing process?
That's a great question. And as a fan of The Who myself, you know, that's why I think the music, I was like, yes, I need more. Not so much a blueprint, because the writers that I really admire don't necessarily write novels or plays. My number one would be Amy Sherman Palladino, and she's a TV writer and showrunner. So she was the showrunner for Gilmore Girls, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And she's currently doing The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So her style, you know, it's very quick. There's not a lot of air in between. It's chock full of, you know, pop culture references, and it's bright.
No, that makes sense.
I don't know if that's a
get that.
great word to use, but it's a bright type of writing, and that's really kind of what draws me, and that's what has inspired my writing and how I kind of tend to write. And then Cecilia Ahern is probably my favorite author of like novels, and she kind of does like magical realism. She wrote P.S. I Love You, Love Rosie, among others. And those two women are really kind of who I try to bounce back and forth between. Oddly enough, playwrights for me, Samuel Beckett has always been my favorite playwright, even though I don't write anything like him. And honestly, you know, I find myself moving farther and farther away from plays, even though, you know, theater's my first love. Live theater goes through so many trends, and right now it's just, you find a lot of dark theater and a lot of tragedy, and like some very dark topics come up, and romantic comedies aren't really, you know, the big hit. So to me, that's where I can really spread my wings with writing.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, so these characters, you finished your book, so are you taking these characters anywhere else after this, do you think? Will they reappear?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked. So This is the first book of a series called the Olive Street series. So there will be 5+ books total
What the what?
in the whole series. Nessa and George and Sammy, their story will be 3 of those books.
What about Aaron?
Oh, him too, yeah.
Okay.
Can't forget Aaron. It'll start with How to Say I Love You, and the next book will be The Unavailable Man Magnet. So the play that was at Fringe will be turned into the second book. And then the third book, which does not have a name yet, it might be called The Red String of Fate, because it does kind of, for lack of a better pun, tie everything together. So Nessa's story is a trilogy, and then the whole series will be about 5 books. And the whole idea is Olive Street is where Nessa and Sammy grew up, and it's kind of an old school northeastern city, it's like Philadelphia is where it's based off of. And families live across the street from each other. You know your neighbors just as well as you know like your brothers and sisters. And so this whole series will be books about all the women who live on that street, and Nessa being 3 of those books.
You go into that in How to Say I Love You. There are moments that you've written about how the neighborhood functions, which because I'm from the other side of the state,
Yeah.
so it's like it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
And there were tremendous feelings that I was getting whenever I was rereading everything, going, okay, well, and that concept of being able to shout across the street as to where someone is, hey, where's Danny?
Yeah.
It was there. I can't I have to recommend it. Like, I felt that you did an amazing job tonight telling the story in parts. But by all means, guys, pick up a copy of this book and fill in the little spaces in between, because it's very exciting. It's a lot of fun to go on Nessa's journey with her.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that happens that I think you'll enjoy. So I've never pushed a book. That was awesome. That was awesome. Any other questions before we say goodnight? Yes, James Honey, third time call.
As a writer
Yeah, man.
and an avid fan of the Actors Studio, he has a bunch of questions that he asks at the end of it. If you've never seen it, I just want to know this.
Mhm.
What is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Oh gosh. That's
The
so
first
hard.
thing that came to your mind is the right one.
It's hard to pick one, but the first thing that came to my mind is serendipitous.
Ow.
And I don't know why, because I don't think I used it that much, but
That seems to be a very fitting word for this evening.
Awesome sauce.
Yes. And if God exists, what would you like him to say when you get to heaven?
Hey girl.
Amanda has copies of How to Say I Love You. They're already signed. They're $10 cash or Venmo. By all means, pick it up. And I'm telling you, you guys are going to love going on Nessa's journey. I can't thank you enough for coming out here. I don't care how many of you there are. Tonight was a lot of fun, at least up here. I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much, because tonight was really, really well. Amanda Turner, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Sleuths. Thank you, Tiffany. She's taking care of you guys at the bar, so be sure to take care of her. Like I said, Amanda's going to be in the back. She's got her books. And thank you guys so much for coming out. Be safe.
Very good.
Thank you.